So I think it should be better now. Good. Because I just added one more airport, so it should be better now. Good. So I think as Jackson just mentioned, I think what I find is that most times everyone's got theoretical knowledge of what they need to do. What they find out is that sometimes they're currently stuck in a pitfall of learning technology gone wrong, or probably thinking of what to do next. So what I would say is, as I run through the slides, if you find something burning in your mind, just drop in the session. I think I'm quite flexible this morning, so I can always tailor the session just to address specific needs. But I think with that, let me just share my slide and I'll get on to the session this morning. Please just drop me a yes when you do see my slides. Good, let me bring that chart up. Okay, good. There we go. All right, so I get yes, it's good. All right, straight on to it. And it's about technology and learning. And I would say that just as Jackson the subtopic says, it's about selecting the right technology and driving adoption. So I think it's two struggles for success in one. One is thinking future fit. I'm thinking about to ensure that we can take advantage. And I think, let me just go straight to the introduction there. It's understanding that the change is rapid. We're currently in a very disruptive era. Probably my role supports technology in the organization, or I think might have a mixed audience of people who are also thinking about to even drive learning using technology. So you currently have a personal course and you want to run an academy and thinking of, okay, what kind of platform do I select? I've seen a number of coaches, for example, who've got their own personal platforms for mentoring. So it's either corporate or non-corporate, but you've found that technology is currently the key driver to cascade the skills and competencies people need or your audience need. And the question is, how do I drive technology? Or how do I leverage technology? And post the implementation, how do I ensure that people are gaining the capability they need to be able to transform organizational strength? And at the same time, how do I ensure that it's not just one of those other solutions that are just piling up over there? So I think those are the things that we need to consider. But I think if you're one of those people, and I think someone, I was having a chat in a session I facilitated, I think that was late last month, and someone was saying that, would there ever be a time that physical instructor-led session would be gone? And I said, it's not a question of if, or it's not a question of when, it's a question of could it be? I think my answer to that is yes. I think given the right motivations, and if you think the principles of andragogy, which is adult-centered learning, you realize that adults cannot be coerced to learn, but adults learn by the immediacy of need. So the COVID era was one that provided the right motivations and the immediacy for people to adopt digital learning. And that's why where we are right now, where 50% or more, and I carefully throw those numbers out, but you find a significant number of organizations globally now consider remote working as an avenue to work. But before COVID, we would never have thought that that's something that would have happened. So right now, technology is no longer a nice to have. It's now a requisite driver of competitive advantage and even individual advantages you find. So even though this is about selecting technology, so I've got extensive experience in consulting, management consulting, and someone was asked that, what do you do in consulting? And I said, what you do is that you know how to ask the right questions. And our questions are always the whys, the whats, the hows, and the what fors. So I've said this is even before you get into selecting technology, you begin with the end in mind, the whys and the whats. I just pulled up this quote by Justin Trudeau, which most of us would know. And I was saying that we don't want technology simply because it's dazzling, but want it and we'll create it and support it because it improves people's lives. And that takes the very first question to say, Where and what are the critical needs of your workforce now and the years to come? I think this are quite generic questions to answer because, as I just mentioned, digital is not a competitive strength. Uh, it's not something you now consider as an afterthought because your competition are already thinking about to leverage digital to kick you out of markets. Uh, just what we thought was very simple back years ago, where you didn't need to open an account. Going to a physical bank is now becoming commonplace. So it means that if you didn't offer that kind of service where someone didn't have to digitally present in a physical banking or before they got your service, it means that you're probably out of place. So it's basically asking, if I was the one supporting the need for an organization to provide digital experience, I'm going to be asking, what are the critical needs? What are the things people need to be able to do? What are the things my organization needs to do now and the years to come? And that's probably those side questions that help you determine the immediacy of the need for technology. If you sit within the L&D function, the question is, what are the present concerns for L&D today in delivering service and delivering value to the organization? I carefully, because most times when I find L&D people and HR people, I think the common place is that HR sometimes considered generally as a constant, and because I carefully use it, because I find that sometimes practitioners within that sphere are very quick to throw out the number of people who attended, but not connecting it to the value that sort of aligns to organizational bottom line. So question really is, what are your present concerns for the L&D function today? And what are things you're finding in your organization? What are you finding collectively? And what do you need to do about it? When you have all these questions set, I think it becomes the very next thing that you need to take. So let me go on a few more things that you need to think of. So how should you as an L&D professional support digital transformation across the business? Remember how I said that the post-COVID era is now a digital era. It's an era that is very sensitive. And when I say sensitive, everyone is walking on eggshells along the digital edge. Everyone is trying to monitor what the other person is doing. And a strategic thinking L&D business leader, L&D professional, L&D practitioner would be monitoring to say, what are the things that the business needs to transform digitally? And how do I position myself in adding value? Let's go on. A few things I'm going to talk about that later on. So, and this is aligning to the point I just mentioned, to say, how do I move that function, that space where I sit, from being a cost center to where it becomes very, very data driven, where it's very evidently driving the business value. Quick one. How do I provide on-demand learning and access in post-COVID age to a diverse global audience? And I think increasingly, most of us are working for organizations where we just don't have people sitting down in one country. I know someone's joining from Kenya right now, so probably you're working for a multi-global function, and probably you're an HR business partner with shared services. And people are sitting all across different organizations saying, what do I need to do to provide on-demand learning? And sometimes the answer to these questions are the ones you need to take in case you've even not delved into learning technology. I'll carefully say, don't even just go and have a question to say, we just need to implement e-learning. What you're doing is that you're arming yourself with the answers to these questions to say, these are the reasons why we need to get technology in place to drive learning. I bet that since this session started, at least one person has thought of something else that's burning on their mind. Probably how to pay your bills, probably one meeting you have at the end of the day, probably the fact that you need to stock up something in the house. Not just the employees' attention that's shrinking. Everyone's attention is shrinking. There's so much to deal with. And it's a busy world we are in. It's a busy one, and one that's filled with uncertainty. So it's natural that attention span is shrinking. You're talking to someone that are thinking of 1,001 other things. And you need to think that when you're thinking about to deliver solutions. And questions to how you cater even to people's continual shrinking attention span when you're thinking of learning and technology. And for the sixth and the seventh is how do you provide engagement and fun? I could talk, and probably maybe another session would probably talk about engagement and fun and brain science and learning. A few things I push in here, but probably not stress because of time. So very, very conscious about time today because just got about 24 minutes to go. And how do you ensure application? I think this is very, very succinct as the rounding point for the questions you need to ask as you even need to think of technology. So you realize that it's not so much that you would just want to put technology for the sake of technology. And just going back to what Justin Trudeau said, it's not just about technology. And when a few people have asked me why I know so much about HR, because I've had experience also in performance management, in competency dictionary building or job profile building, and quite a lot of the 9 years of HR. And that's because digital learning or learning technology is just an adverbial for learning. It's about learning. And learning is not learning for the sake of learning. The reason why you train people, the reason why you develop people, aside people where your organizations it's one of the freebies you get. The reason why you want people to grow, you want them to add value to the business. So if application is not being considered and it's not being factored in your discussion, you probably easily lose value over a period of time when you have conversations with C-level people. And also collaboration is very key. I think one of the easiest frameworks that people would mention is the 70-20-10. And you find out that 70% of that is still sitting within the informal conversations that happen. And the question is, how do we take that even into the learning technology we bring in? I think by the time you think about these questions, are you thinking even what you ask your provider whenever they bring you a solution? I think last one is, while you're thinking of now, you're also thinking of the next thing. So am I getting something that is easily future fit, something that allows me to take advantage of what's now and also what's on for the future? So I've titled this Mapping the Whys to the Whats. And I'm careful on this session not to mention about one specific solution. I want to be very agnostic as much as possible, even though I can always have a side chat later on to provide advice on consulting services on what you need to implement. But I found that whatever you need to implement now in the future sits about these 4 spheres. What I found that, yeah, some of them cross over the buckets that I've put in there, but I've been really, really deliberate to put content first, because whatever you do, getting fancy solutions and technology, and the content isn't there to drive the competency requirements, you're probably missing quite, arguably say 90% of what you need to do, because that's the very core of what you need to do. That's the very core of what people need to learn. So your content might be sitting on aggregators. There are quite a number of aggregators out there. I think I mentioned Degree there. The number of library providers. I think the Skillsoft, number of other ones. There are content portals that you can pick content from, but that's something key when you think of technology. So I guess that's probably taking the points to your mind to say, okay, when I'm thinking learning technology, I'm not just thinking of, I think the buzzword is always LMS. Always think content also. And in some cases, okay, I think someone is, okay, good. All right, so, and in some cases, you're not thinking off the shelf content because some of these platforms are off the shelf. You can just pick them online, subscribe to a provider. Sometimes you're thinking bespoke because your organizational requirements is quite unique. So if you work in a very high-paced, compliance-driven environment, for example, in HSC, high-consequence industries like the military or like oil and gas, you find that some of your needs are going to be very unique. They're not things you find even though providers are moving into that area. But if you're thinking off the shelf, the question is also, Does my platform offer me the ability to create content, or do I have the capability to develop content that will sit on the platform? So let's go to the next thing, which is management. The solutions here are not so much bordered, even though we're finding the recent amalgamation of things within the management and the experience design solution set. But I find that the management guys are just focused on helping you to improve the administration of learning. So your LMSs, your LCMSs, the training suites that you find that allow you to register people, manage the scheduling. Some even allow you to manage physical centers and the resources attached to those facilities. The talent suites, private over there. And there's some solutions that are even part of human resource information systems and enterprise relational platforms. Most of them are focused on managing the administration learning. I would say that they were, for a very good while, the solutions in the management suites were not so much focused on the learner. They were all about empowering administrators to do their work. So, and that goes back to the questions that I asked initially. And I was having a conversation with a colleague 2 days ago. She had just resumed her role in an organization and was finding it hard to. Okay, I think someone is unmuted again. Was finding that to use the solution that had been procured by the organization. And she was hoping that I would come in and provide them something. I said, before you even start off by kicking out anything, you need to go back and ask management, what was the purpose in the first place? What was the strategy? And she did mention that there was something about commercialization. And I said, if you did intend to commercialize, then you must have been very high on experience, because end users are not going to be so much interested in how you administer the system. They're going to be very, very keen on the user experience. So look out for management solutions, because they might not be so much great on experience. But I'll be very honest to say, if you work in high consequence industries where you need to show evidence on compliance, you're probably needing things more about management end. Now, the word LXPs are becoming very, very thrown out there because those platforms are keen on experience. But I'll be very honest to say that some of your LXPs are not so much down to administration. They're not going to give you all the nuts and bolts to deliver administrations. Again, carefully saying that LXPs, you're finding that some providers are now infusing LMS type functions to LXPs, but the truth is most of them are very, very keen on just providing you consumer grade experiences, the kind of things you find in YouTube, kind of things you find on Instagram. Because anyway, we're living in a consumer grade world. The question most times, and with the multi-generation of people sitting within the workforce and the younger ones coming in, the question they ask you is there an app for that? And not just any app, not just any door looking app. They're looking out for the kind of things they find on YouTube and Instagram. And that's what LXPs are coming to do, coming to bridge the gap, providing you significant experience design for the solution. 1 second, I need to move back. Now, you've got collaborative systems. Adaptive systems are becoming newer systems, and we could have another session on adaptive learning, because adaptive learning is seemingly understanding the fact that user needs would be diverse, and also understanding the fact that, and this is something you could do manually through learning curation, that's curating different pathways for people. But AI is also going to be very, very significant in this area. Think of how Yemi has previous learning experience. Let's say Yemi's got an MBA and he's got very unique experience or learning in business. And I want him to sit in an executive MBA. The pathways he would need would differ from someone who's never had any business experience. So adaptation for learning is ensuring that people spend the right amount of time and you're not excessively infusing scrap learning into your strategy. And there are performance systems also there. Now, careful, the last bucket is something you need to look out for, because some of them also position themselves as full learning solutions, but they are just point solutions. They're point solutions because they've got very specific strategies and very specific objectives. And if you're not careful and you're sitting within the L&D role and you purchase that for an entire enterprise learning requirement, you'll probably find yourself on the very bad side of the business. So some of them are digital adoption platforms. And these platforms, and one of them is WorkFix. They're very good at what they do. I remember when I think for about 2-3 years was implementing this was the first bank, and as Ademola mentioned, we worked for quite a lot of multinationals, African and also global organizations implementing learning. So First Bank had launched Pinnacle, and they needed to get and expedite learning and also that experience across the entire business, all the countries around the world. So we're doing both English and localizing French and Portuguese and the others. And it wasn't an LMS type solution we had to offer. We had to offer a simulation type tool that would take the entire experience across, allow people to learn at the same time apply learning. And these are the type of point solutions. They're not so much your LMS type solutions. Some of them will integrate with LMSs, but look out for them because they've got specific purpose. It's the same way also. I know the likes of your SharePoint and a number of other, Atlassian Confluence is one of them because I've implemented a number of knowledge management systems also. So, but they sit very well as knowledge bases. Good. Just trying to keep an eye on my time. And some of them are just video-based platforms. They're not going to be so much important in administration, in tracking, but it's just video-based. So it will allow people to record videos, push up videos. Focus is probably just collaboration and virality of learning. So again, you go back to purpose, you go back to strategy, go back to what the business needs, go back to what's on demand, what's your struggle for success, and look at all the buckets of solutions, and you probably know what the right questions are. With this, it's easier for someone like me to say, okay, it's easier to design a business requirements document. And that's sometimes the first thing I normally ask people to. Your business requirements document is a statement of success. And that's the question you ask a provider, because it allows you to tailor to what you need now and what you'll be needing in the future. And in some cases, you might probably be needing one or two solutions in this bucket. I'll say be careful of solutions that say they answer all. When I'm beginning, because I've been here before, so I can tell you that providers and consultants will sell anything. Anyone can sell. The art of selling is a very great skill. But I would say that carefully look out for solutions will tell you that, you know what, every single thing we do it. That might just be a very tough one. All right, good. Let's go on. So naturally, the tons of solutions you find within the HR space to cover every single thing there. So again, look out for not just, and don't sit as a silo. What I mean is, so there's a learning and talent maturity framework, which I'll probably be happy to share later on. And at the very entry level of learning is just sitting out there with no necessary direct correlation with all the other HR functions. But the very top maturity of learning, when I say sorry, at the very top maturity of talent, your talent maturity, you find that learning is not just siloed. Learning has its direct integration with every single thing within the sphere. So again, is ensuring that when you answer the questions, you are not just sitting as the L&D Lord of the Rings, for lack of better words. You're also ensuring that you are looking out for the entire organizational talent needs. So how do we ensure that learning speaks to performance appraisal? I don't mean that you should always think integration, but you should be asking questions. How do we ensure that the outcomes of our competency management, competency assessment, the actions of our succession planning of our career management is speaking to our learning requirements, and our learning technology is even at the basic process, at the very basic process requirements, is addressing those needs. So there are some things that integration would not address, but processes would address. So you need to also be looking out for a number of things here. Yeah, I know some of you were hoping to see, oh, these are the top 10 LMSs, but I realized that most times people get it wrong when they think it's about the big names out there. So lessons: before selecting a platform, adopt a digital mindset, get the goals out, get your strategy out. At selection, don't be shy to ask for references. You can, and I would say, okay, good. So just, I think it was earlier in the year, I was out at Y Combinator Founders School. So there's a school for founders that's set up by Y Combinator, which is a venture capitalist, one of the biggest venture capitalists. They're the ones who funded your Stripe, your Paystack, the biggest names of your e-commerce industries. And they were saying something that was very, very interesting to me, that whenever they want to invest in a company, they do not just look out for the ideas, or maybe the two biggest things they look out for is the ideas and the people. That because it's easier to buy into people than to buy into solutions and ideas, because the people easily can transform the ideas. So I would say also what also you look out for is look out for people who's got quite some expertise in not just practicing technology, but practicing learning, because there are two different things. You hardly find people who's got experience in technology and also learning. And that's why it's a very niche industry, very niche. Digital learning is a very niche industry. Some people are just great at developing and coding, and they're also interested in experience, and they don't understand how performance or learning links up, but vet the profile of the people who are involved. Good. You need to create agile constructional teams that will work throughout the selection process. This is sometimes very tricky to you just losing before you start, because if you do it on your own, it's easier for you to come back when someone says, oh, we're not involved. We don't even know what you did. It was just your thing. I say that point is not so much about the team. It's about understanding the politics of the workplace. And this point is about driving adoption, but it's ensuring that when you do kick off, and I was speaking to an MD of a top Nigerian hospital yesterday, and we're just discussing, there was an implementation that we needed to kick off for an electronic management system for their clinical services. And we're discussing the need to bring in champions early enough in this implementation to ensure that we got buy-in from all the different key stakeholders. And that's what this point is about. Also partner with internal teams to ensure that you can market well, you can strategize, and also you can communicate. And while it's becoming very, it's no longer new that learning people are now becoming vast in design and user experience design and marketing. But when necessary, get your marketing team, get your corporate communications team early enough in the implementation stage so that you can get them to sell the entire initiative, not just the technology, and get buying early. Be also involve leadership and key stakeholders. I think there's this quote that says that culture, we have strategy for breakfast or lunch. I don't know what time of the day it's up, but anyway, culture was have strategy for its meal anytime, any day. And there are two ways culture can be developed or culture can be achieved in a family. And let me use family, then you can now think of an organization. If you're a parent, you can easily just determine how the culture is toned out in your home. Basically, you tell the kids, this is how we do. This is, you do not shout, you do not make noise outside. You set out the rules, the ground rules. And that's basically your top-down approach. There's your bottom-up where it's very fluid. It's very organic. It's everybody sets the tone. However, the key stakeholders sort of monitor the things that are happening. So you find out that some kids stay in our home. We don't call our siblings using any titles, it's just by first name basis. They just pick it up organically. However, I would say that in both schools or thoughts, leadership is very, very important. So I'd say that the leadership needs to start up early by sending the tone that digital is something that needs to happen. Digital is something that is key to the success of the organization. As simple as your CEO going in on the platform, and what I find is that some cases, people don't even get licenses for the CEO, they don't bother about, but it sends a very keen message when your executives are also very, very early adopters of your solution and ensuring that they communicate the need for adoption to the entire organization. I'll say that you should provide focused, relevant, very focused, aligned. Yeah, I think alignment is the word. When you do shop for content, you've gone around, and when I go back to where learning is asking for the needs of the entire HR business fair, what the outcomes of your content portfolio should speak to is the needs of the organization, not just now, but in the future. So what are pitfalls to watch out for? I just suspect that probably, Jackson, how many minutes? I think I've got about 3 more minutes. Yeah, good. All right, we'll see what we do about this. Good. So pitfalls to watch out for, especially if you work with an SME, or so if you're SME, not to go, and sometimes budgets are quite small. Be careful to want to start big. I'm always advising people, especially who want to go into digital learning, to be careful about spending big, especially when they're unsure about what the organization is going to do. Don't be too careful to start small. You can, and this is an agile approach to learning, and agile is no longer, so my traditional Prince 2 certification was the waterfall approach, but I have also an agile certification that says that you can always start small, start with a smaller set of people, then take the results and scale out to the entire organization. So that's something you can always do. So also think long-term, not short-term alone. So even though you want to start small, have an eye on what's the end in mind. So can your solution be scaled to fit a growing organizational need, or is it just always going to be for the 10 users you started with? So always think of how you're going to scale out. Another thing people miss out is support. And that support doesn't always have to be external, but always start up by asking your provider how they're going to support you. Some people, as I mentioned, are just tech providers. So you just drop a solution and walk out, but ask, what's the support strategy? What's the service level agreement? How are they going to support you? And also, I always advise, and what I've done in most of my experiences is to train internal people to become the first advocate. So the mix of champions and also the L&D help desk. So I have an L&D help desk. So let your people be trained also to be able to provide the first level of support. So is the solution regularly updated? Is there research and ongoing developments to take care of what's currently trending within the space? When you think content, is a content portfolio supporting your standard industry packages? And that's something I'll carefully push out, because in some cases, you're not really interested in standard packages. Remember, I mentioned that some point solutions that are just interested in throwing out videos. So if it's just videos, then you don't need standard packages. But in that case, if you're asking what kind of video formats does the solution also support? Integration requirements is also something very keen. You find that in some cases that your learning solution needs to speak to other solutions within the entire space. So you need to speak to your HRIS. But also be very careful, because sometimes integration is just a tech word requirement. In most of the times that I've gone into pitches and someone says, oh, we need to integrate this with our HRIS, I always ask, what kind of data do you want to see? Because integration should not be just about technology. It's not even about technology. Yeah. I think we should throw that out there. Integration is really an exchange requirement. It's an experience requirement, not a technology requirement. It's ensuring that we can simplify the experiences that happen between one solution to another, and data sits at the base of that. So ask questions where there's an integration requirement. I've talked about leadership support and stakeholder buying. The need for consumerized content, that's consumer grade content. I was speaking with someone earlier in the week, and they had very interesting content. I use one interesting. People have just implemented digital learning, and they're going to scroll through lines of text. And remember that these people are adults. You're not going to coerce them to learn. So they're going to probably add all the communal discussion where someone will scroll through the content is going to scroll through that content for them. As I've seen in most of the top banks, one branch manager is going to call some of their very rookies to sit down in front of the system and scroll through the screen and answer all the questions. You don't want that. So ensure that it's consumerized, great content that is interesting, is being instructionally designed. And also think mobile. That's something that probably needs, but mobile first is something that you should think. If it's not a mobile, and mobile first doesn't always have to be mobile app. Is it at the minimum mobile responsive? Can it tailor itself to any mobile device? Does it allow you to track and bookmark? Because you don't want to frustrate learners that have gone through 1 hour of course to realize that, oh, the system didn't even track what I've been doing all through. These are pitfalls that can even allow you to lose your learning technology strategy before you start, because you just find that you're building detractors, and your net promoter score for your implementation just goes out. And always think of experience over use. Yes, function is great. Let it be fit for purpose, but also let it be fit for use. All right, good. I think I'm going to stop early today because I've got about half the content to still churn out. But let me talk about some very important things in this, and I'm just going to talk about this. This is something also you need to look out for. Now, when you're about selecting a learning technology, you need to understand what adoption is, and not just any kind of adoption, digital adoption. Now, I found people who implement new technology and complain that nobody's using it and things like that. And you always need to understand your culture. And when you do sometimes you need to do a digital culture assessment before you even, oh, okay, we start 10 minutes to 11. Okay, good. All right. Good. Thanks for that, Jackson. Good. So a digital culture basically is about digital maturity. And you need to understand that when you're pushing a digital solution, learning technology, you need to ensure that the people who are going to use them are at the minimum mature digitally. And this sometimes sounds like it's too much to ask for, but the truth is your culture is your culture. So if you don't do something about your culture before you push them a digital solution, 1 second, then do not complain if they struggle to use the solution. So whether you're going to use a stick or a carrot or start with change management in mind, but you need to understand that your culture would also determine the level of adoption. And the maturity is not just about a skill, it's also about a mindset. Let me take that again. The maturity of your organization digitally is not just a skill, it's also a mindset. Because some people think, oh no, got very blazing young guys in our organization. They can use Microsoft Office. They love tech solutions, but still, you find that some people are just anti-technology and learning. Sometimes because they've had an interesting benefit system that you've given to them for attending physical sessions for quite a long while. I remember when we implemented digital learning for a Federal Reserve Bank, names withdrawn for good reasons. 70% of the learning budget was spent in logistics for almost for almost 5 years, that's been the trend. 7% of the learning budget has just been spent in moving people around and per diem and the like. So you find that there was quite a lot of incentive to remain in the old way than to get digitally mature. So for them, it was more a mindset than a skill set challenge. They were not digitally naive, but the mind was anti the adoption. So in some cases, you need to design a change management strategy that would sort of translate them from old ways to new ways. You need to understand the motivation for why they want to stay where they used to be, and make them understand why they must do different things now, and in the future do something different from what they did yesterday. And that's why change management is also very, very important. So you should also start with the pursuit of digital readiness. And that's what I call it. So it's the investment in culture, in processes, and technology. All right. So because I want to take questions today, I'm going to stop here for good reasons. Again, I've got quite a number of things to cover, but these are things that we can always get on our own. But I think, again, it's a masterclass. So I'm going to take questions and hope that we can use that to drive some of the other content I've got here. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yemi. When I saw the slide this morning, I already knew that we're going to have a challenge completing the majority of the content. But at least you've touched on the number of important points in selecting a technology and also driving adoption. And it's all about getting clear direction on why you even want to get the LMS or whatever platform it is you are looking to adopt. I know I've had to engage a number of people who say, oh, they are offering training as a service, and they are looking to looking to adopt a learning management system. And the first question I ask is, if you're offering training as a service, what's your client base? Because once you are setting up an LMS for training as a service, you need to be sure that quite a number of people would want to take on those services.
Correct.
Else you are going to incur a cost, except you are looking to wait for a very long time and then try to drive people and the likes. But if not, then you better just maintain, maybe you start doing your live online session, or you come up with another strategy to migrate people from your classroom to online before you now start offering training as a service online. So, but just because of time, I think I'll leave the floor open for people who have questions, and let the conversation commence. I know you have a question in the chat already from Akin, if I remember correctly. Akin, do you want to unmute yourself to ask your question, or would you want me to read out the question? Okay.
Hello, I will ask myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I saw something on mapping, so I was wondering if it's same thing. One slide you presented on mapping, if it's same thing on affinity mapping, close to that in data analysis, or maybe it's different. That's what I want to know.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So, so mapping and learning is about curation, and so that learning mapping is really about. Okay, so think of this way, and what you find now is that marketing is one very tricky thing now. So someone in product design is going to sit down and say, so let me use something we're all used to. So before, you were used to buying milk, and you bought your coffee separately. So there's increasingly need for 3-in-1. That's how you find such products. So what someone has done is to think of what the market needs are, and they've mapped things together. So user experience design, for example, is a combination of other things between user experience and design. So someone's mapped things together, and it's not user experience design. So someone's going to sit down in the organization and is saying, what are the skill sets that are unique to our organization? You might find that it's not data analysis, it's probably pivot table analysis, because the tool they use is pivot table. So rather than just getting someone a 3-day Excel class, you'll probably mix a few things around data analysis, fundamentals, pivot table in Excel, reporting in PowerPoint, and that becomes another skill set. So that's the mapping function. It's quite different from affinity learning. I'm not sure if that's data science, but I think affinity is about thinking of people's disposition to learning. Yeah.
Okay, okay, please, is that clear?
Yeah, thank you. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Please, if you have questions, kindly use the raise hand emoji or smiley on Zoom so that we can ask you to unmute.
I think we have an AY that's his hand's been up for a while.
AY, your hand has been up for a while. Do you have a question for Yemi? Again, this session is for anything technology and learning. It might not have been captured in this in this presentation, but if you have any question, probably you are looking to adopt a particular technology solution, you are currently engaging a vendor and you probably want to seek clarification, or you currently have one system and you are having issues either with driving adoption or even using it. I can assure you, I can beat my chest that Olayemi will be able to attend to most of the questions you have. So if you have any questions, please raise up your hand. Oh, he has never talked about flip learning. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise up your hand. If not, what I would just do, since Olayemi still has a lot of slides to go. I think Monisola has a question. Monisola, would you want to unmute yourself or we should just read it? Maybe I'll just read it. Yemi, can you see our question?
Let me bring up the chat.
Okay.
There we go.
This is all very new to me. When you have users that are total, okay. This is all very new to me. When you have users that are total novice, say SSC, what learning solutions can be engaged? Okay.
Okay. That's a good word, Monsala. So again, just going back to what I said. So when you think of what change as aside the fact that everyone is saying, okay, we're in an agile world, so you need to embrace change, except probably with the right motivations. I don't think probably you just wake up one morning and say, I've left the house. I'm going to bus stop. I'm going to sleep here. No, it doesn't. I don't think anyone was probably going to do that. There are a few considerations you put in place. And one option is to go very military on people. You go very military, you probably get the results you want, you probably not get it. And the other option is to think with the learner in mind. So these guys are total novices. And again, that's back to digital maturity. So you might probably take a very long-term strategy to transit them into a digital sphere. And sometimes it doesn't have to begin with implementing a learning system. It doesn't have to be just starting with virtual sessions like this and testing the waters. So check what they're feeling. Just test the waters with virtual sessions and see what they do with it. And at the same time, try to sell the benefits to them. I've had people who have advised, if you've had per diem going to physical sessions before, you can decide to redirect your budget and even incentivize virtual sessions. Let me chip this in. So one of the sessions that I was having an advisory session with a client, and I was saying that if people came in for a physical session, would they be fed? My person said yes. And I was saying that, do you mind dispatching lunch meals to them during the lunch hour and having delivered to their homes? And sometimes that's an incentive for change. So again, think of what's the struggle for success? What do you think are the motivations that would get people to shift the position? Because sometimes it's not. Some people are just anti-change. Yeah. Those ones, it's probably going to be stick. But people are not necessarily silly or crazy. You find that some people just have fears. And the moment you can do a user experience research, find out what their fears are. You can easily design a change management strategy. Some people are going to need handholding. I think Jackson would attest to sessions we've had to facilitate, or Jackson has had to facilitate sessions for Microsoft Excel for people in their 40s and 50s. And they will call you and say, so, excuse me, sir, please come. Where is the mouse? If you want to succeed, you need to understand that that's the stage of life where they are in. And in some cases, when I do my, so I would ask probably the client to send me the profile of the people who are coming to class. If I could actually interview them, I would interview them and find out what their struggles are. When necessary, I could come in with 2 or 3 additional supports in class. People who are just going to sit them to make the session very easy for them. Because the moment you lose some people at the beginning and they feel, you know what, this is off my track. I don't think I can succeed in this. They've switched off, and that's the end of your initiative. So you must be willing to design that change strategy right from the start and say, you know what, this is my success, and I need to find an organic approach. Remember, I said you can always go military. Military is threatening their salaries, threatening different kind of things. But I bet you find some people who would say, you know what, this politics game we're going to play together, we'll take it all to the CEO, and your solution is going to fail. So sometimes you need to think, something bridgehead to say, this is what we're putting in place to ensure people succeed. But where this fails, this is our backup carrot approach to ensure that people who are not going to join this training, we're still going to get them one way or the other. Yeah. So you said start small. When we're looking at the staff strength of more than 7,000 scattered over various locations, how do I start small? Oh, good. All right. So I suspect this is part of the government. So this is a tricky one, but I'm careful to choose a formula-based approach because, to be honest, until when you've identified what your organizational niche is, you might probably not. But let me use an organization that we actually, I think that was 2017. I was about 5,000 to 10,000 users. I was a project manager for this implementation. We're just implementing an enterprise-grade learning management system. And this was a 3-month-long project. I started off in Abuja, training the L&D team of about 20 people in 3 sessions over 2 months. Then we had a champion session where we brought in people from the 36 states of the Federation, that's in Nigeria. And they were housed for 3 days in a center. And we had train-the-trainer sessions for them. All these people went back and did hand-holding for the people. We identified almost 300 change champions in entire organizations. What these people were tasked with, they were given very nice, cool t-shirts, and they all felt great about the responsibility. But they went back, and their work was to drive change in their organizations. They were meant to train their people, help people in their departments, and they were meant to come back to the change team and suggest improvements. That's a strategy to start small. But you realize that it's not so much about just dumping technology. You probably have, let's say, 10 to 20% of your entire implementation budget set just on change management. Because imagine you're going to fly almost 300 people across the federation to a single location, but that was the cost of success for them. Again, careful to say that's a formula for your own situation, but you need to look at what your need is and think of how you're going to strategy. But to be honest, champions always work. Now, let me carefully use that as round up the point on your question. So I don't want to make this political, but I'll talk about this. So the Nigerian elections are around the corner, and you find out that there's a certain party whose strategy has been very organic from the grassroots. No one is leading them, and they're going around and they're doing different things around the country in the name of a certain cause. That's a strategy for starting small when you have people scattered around. You find that no political party sits at the very top and says they're going to win. They go to the grassroots, find those youth leaders and are going to incentivize to drive their people. That's a strategy for where people are scattered, where you can't reach everybody. There are different varying locations and different struggles for success. That's how you start small.